everybody, Crafting Journey here, that journey chick on Instagram. Welcome back to another day of the morning show. Mornings with Crafting Journey. Woohoo! It's hump day. Mike. Wednesday, that means Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I go to work. Yeah. I sing, gotta go to work. Work. Yep. Sing along with me. Everybody sing. Yeah, no. So, oh, that was my watch. Oh, yesterday, the watch. I'm getting ready for the the Crafters 90-day step challenge. And I realized yesterday that my Apple Watch was not synchronized with my new iPhone. So that took me several hours because I had to do the software updates, to the watch. But in the end, several hours later, I found, I don't know if I can show it to you. When you take it off, sometimes it goes away. Let me see if I can show it to you. Oh, lots of fire engines going by. Okay. I don't know if you can see the watch face. It's Alice and Absalom, the worm. Yes, and he's asking her, "Who are you?" Or she's saying, "Who are you?" Anyway, how funny. So yes, my watch is now synchronized, and I have a cool watch face. Alice in Wonderland. Who knew, right? What? Yes, Rebecca, we knew you'd choose Alice. Yes, we did. Okay, well, I did. You were right. Wow, wonder what's going on. That's a lot of fire engines and ambulances. I'm so nosy. Okay. Now let's turn the light pad on. And we can diamond paint. We are getting there, folks. I've got the top row almost done. I'm just working on this little bitty corner part here. And then I'm going to go down to the next row and go across. And then, oh yeah, we're almost there. Yay! Then I just have to figure out, I'm going to have to rearrange the Alice wall just a little bit to make it fit. Hi, Jake. Good morning. Hello, buddy. He's like, man, I've already told Tootsie that I have to go to work. So she's not happy. No, sirree, Bob. Yeah, didn't like that news this morning. And I think she understands what I'm saying. We have this little conversation, and she sits in the bed and she goes like this. Like she's listening to me. It's so cute. I mean, she is listening to me, but does she understand what I'm saying? I don't know if any of you ever read the Dean Koontz book, The Watchers. He's got a couple of books, like where the dogs they've been like mutated in this lab and they're super smart and they learn how to talk, not out loud, but they can communicate through using this alphabet system. It's so cool. But the dogs can read, like this one family that has one of these dogs. Make sure that the dog always has a book to read, and he turns the pages with his paw. It's more about the mystery of how the dogs came to be and the bad guys behind it, and but I love stories about dogs, especially super smart dogs. Anywho, yes, I am going into the office today. Otherwise, I wouldn't be wearing this super ugly shirt. Just, I don't know. I didn't want to wear one of my big, bright, bold shirts to the office. I just don't think that would go over well. So I'm wearing an office attire shirt. You're like, yep, Rebecca, she'll try anything. I actually will. But I am going to have to dedicate, I think, tonight is Craft With Me Wednesday. I'll be coloring with Christy, but next week, instead of doing the collage quilting, because I'm just working on the background right now anyway, instead of doing that, I'm going to set up the Cricut, and we're going to figure this thing out, because I haven't done anything with it. So I'm going to set it up. We're going to pick out a pattern for me, something that I want to make. We'll figure out what materials I need to make it, and maybe we'll go shopping together. We'll see. What national day is it? Oh my gosh, you guys, it's National Fibromyalgia Recognition Day, a Fibromyalgia Awareness Day. And boy, am I aware of it. Now, I have been told in the past that I have fibromyalgia, but I feel like if I do, it's very mild, because I don't seem to get the flare-ups like I know. I know people intimately now that, well, not that intimate. Come on, don't think that way. Not just very close friends. Let me put it another way. I have very close friends now that I know have this fibromyalgia, and I know what their symptoms are. I know they have these flare-ups, and I don't know if it's because of the medication I take or, yeah, I don't know. But I haven't been told that I have that. But it can be, in its severe forms, very devastating, especially when you get these flare-ups. Some can last a few minutes. It can last hours. It can last days, weeks. One of my friends, it took her down for 2 weeks once, and I was like, "Oh, my friend, I couldn't do anything to help her." So some of the, it's a musculoskeletal syndrome that causes a variety of symptoms. Over 12 million Americans have it, and I know I have subscribers in other countries that have this disease. And for a long time, it was a disease of exclusion. Like, they couldn't figure out anything wrong with you, so then they called it fibromyalgia. And it was typically, women in their early 30s, early 40s that were being diagnosed with this. And I think that's when they diagnosed me. However, my mother used to always say that she had it, and I didn't believe her. She'd say, "Come to the meetings, come to a meeting with me," and I wouldn't go with her. I'm like, "Mom, I don't even believe that this disease exists. I was a registered nurse. I didn't believe in it." I just thought, this was her way of getting attention. My mom always sought attention, and I thought, oh, this is another way for her to get attention, But, I'm looking at the degree, the list of symptoms, and, perhaps she did have fibromyalgia. Perhaps, maybe I was being very insensitive at the time. But I was also following, I was in the medical field. I was, listening to the doctors who were saying, this is not a real disease. Now the doctors say, yes, it is a real disease. So the tide has shifted, so I had to shift my way of thinking to, yes, okay, this is a real disease. So some of the symptoms are widespread pain, tender points, incapacitating fatigue, anxiety, depression. Well, I have those three. I can get so tired sometimes I'll just fall asleep right where I am. Anxiety, depression, yeah. So migraines, chronic headaches, irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bladder, insomnia, hypersensitivity to hot or cold, swelling, fibrofog, which is an inability to concentrate or focus, difficulty remembering, numbness, stiffness, decreased energy, noise, light, and odor sensitivity, and skin sensitivity. Now you can have some of those, all of those, just a few of them, and they can come and go, you know. Like I said, they could last a few minutes, it could last hours, days, weeks. And there really is no known treatment. The treatment is really symptomatic. You know, take medication for whatever your major symptoms are, you know, for your depression, your fatigue, to help manage your sleep. You know, you can get physical therapy to help manage some of the pain. So, yeah. So how do we celebrate? Well, we don't really celebrate this day, but you can take this day to make yourself aware of this condition, because many, many people in this community have it. And I am so sensitive to it now that, you know, if my friends have it, I know there's nothing I can do for them except let them know that I'm there for them, check on them, make sure that they know they're loved, and maybe try to put a smile on their face somehow, and just get them through those times when this flares up. So if you hear someone say that they have this and they have a fibro flare, educate yourself, figure out what that is, so we can be there to support each other, you know, and our friends that have this. And moving on. Oh, you guys yesterday with the national, what was it? Eat Whatever You Want Day. Man, most of you like went for the seafood. Like, oh, the seafood. My sister named every kind of seafood I think there was. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum was a death by chocolate. I think those were the big winners. Seafood and death by chocolate. Now, I don't like seafood, so I'll stick with my steak. But I agree with the death by chocolate. Oh, listen, and just give me anything chocolate. I'm happy. Now, don't give me a milk chocolate candy bar. No, I want the indulgent, real, dark, Ghirardelli type chocolate, you know. Like, yeah. Okay, I should have talked about this yesterday. Why am I talking about it again today? Because, yeah, I'm just talking about your responses. That's all. That's all. All right, let's do judge, jury, and jury before we run out of time. So yesterday was day one of the trial where they started putting on witnesses. Now, a lot of the witnesses were just kind of to get evidence in. Let me go all the way back to the beginning because this judge is kind of moving things right along. This is a male judge. Okay, so the first one was an officer named Kevin Arnold. He came on and he described the duties of a patrol officer. Then we had the field training officer, William Crisp. He was actually the field training officer for the defendant. Now, what happened was this defendant had worked at another police agency, and I have not heard what that agency was. Not yet. Where'd my pen go? Oh, it's right here. And the FTO explained that the field training officer, you know, is where they ride with the office, the FTO. They ride with that officer, the training officer, for 16 weeks. And he takes them through this manual, and they learn all the policies and procedures and the way that this county does things. And that's if you're fresh out of the police academy. It's 16 weeks. But this defendant was not fresh out of the police academy, and the policies do say that the training course can be shortened for people that have come from other agencies. So he had 4 weeks with this field training officer, after which he got this glowing review that he was he had done exceptionally well. He never had to be told anything twice. He picked up everything right away. Um, um, and some of the stuff that he was trained on was that the body cameras should be worn continuously during a traffic stop. Now we know that some of these 12 traffic stops that we're going to hear about, the body cam was not used at all, or it was used intermittently. Some it was used for the whole time, but some is just missing altogether, and some it was used here and there. And also within the training was how to collect evidence and how to, and then on cross-examination, the defense attorney is very focused on the police vehicle, because I think he believes, it wasn't searched right away, it was put in the wrong place, and it wasn't preserved the way it should have been preserved prior to being searched. It took them weeks before they searched this police vehicle. And typically when you take a vehicle that needs to be processed at a later time, the doors are sealed, everything is sealed until you start that processing. And then when you finish that processing, you seal it back up and you date and time everything. This didn't happen with this police vehicle. So the defense attorney is very focused on this. So he asked this FTO, are they trained on where to store, vehicles that need processing? And he explained where the vehicles are supposed to go if they need to be processed. And he said the policy says they have to be processed within 3 days. Well, we know that didn't happen in this case. It took them weeks to search this police officer's car. The next witness was Caleb Corbin, who was an IT guy. So he came on and he explained to us, how the body camera works, and that they're each assigned to a particular officer, and at the end of their shift, or if they're working, several shifts in a row, like maybe they're working 3 days in a row, at the end of those 3 days, when they come in at the end of their shift, there's I guess a docking station or something that they can put their body cam in and download all of footage. And then it goes to this site called the evidencelibrary.com. Now, if a police officer wants to look at that footage at a later time, they do have access to that site, evidencelibrary.com. So that was really what he was there to testify to. The next witness was Diana Chase. She was an agent with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, which is the agency that actually investigated this officer. As you'll recall, the internal affairs for this county, once they realized the magnitude of what was going on here, they turned it over to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and said, we want you guys to take over this case, which is why I suspect that vehicle did not get processed in a timely fashion, because the Jackson County Police probably thought that FDLE was going to come and process that vehicle, and they didn't. So what this woman did on the stand, she's a special agent. She brought in all 12 criminal files. Her job was to go collect all of these criminal files with all of the body cam footage, all of the police reports, anything associated with those 12 cases. It was her job to collect that so it could be investigated by FDLE. She did indicate that she said either 4 or 5. I can't remember if she said 5 or if she said 4. Of the 12 cases had no body cam footage, which I thought was really interesting. Um, and she did acknowledge that all of the police reports um, contain an affidavit that the police officer has to sign acknowledging, um, you know, the truthfulness for everything that's contained in the report, which we suspect now this officer was not being truthful. So the first victim goes on the stand. His name is Joshua Emmanuel. And this is a nice looking young man, very put together. Seemed to be, you know, he worked at American Eagle. He was a manager. Um, Good looking young man, full beard, which I'm not into full beards, but it looked good on him. I'll take that. So he was on his way to work in Pensacola, and he was stopped by this officer. And the officer tells him, "Listen, I ran your license plate, and your license is suspended." And he's like, "No, it's not. Uh, I wasn't aware that it was suspended." So he tells him to step out of the vehicle. And then he says, he asks this man, "Do I have permission to search your vehicle?" And the man's like, "Sure, I don't have anything to hide." So he tells him, go stand in the front of my police car." And by this time, a backup officer has come onto the scene, and it was a Florida highway patrolman, a state trooper. Um, so he does ask the defendant, he does ask this victim, he says, "Before I search your vehicle, what am I going to find?" And he tells him, he says, I have a handgun in the center console. And he didn't have permission to have this handgun. He didn't have a concealed weapon permit, but he wanted to be honest with the officer, and he wanted to let him know, hey, there's a handgun there. So the officer proceeds to do his search, and Joshua says, the officer would go back to his vehicle. He went back and forth to his vehicle several times. And that he could not see what the guy was doing because his back was turned to him. And that's the testimony of pretty much all the victims. They were either sitting down so they couldn't see it, because sometimes he would tell the victims to sit down in front of his vehicle. And this particular victim, this was broad daylight. Yeah, broad daylight. So, and there was body cam footage of this traffic stop, and I watched it, and I could not see, I didn't see anything suspicious, but I don't know that I was supposed to see anything suspicious. He certainly wasn't going to show it on his body cam, so I suspect whatever he did it out of, so the body cam couldn't see it. I mean, I don't know if he palmed it in his glove, to plant it in the vehicle. He had short sleeves on, so he wasn't hiding it up his sleeve, the officer. But he began his search on the driver's side, ended on the passenger side, then comes back and tells this guy, "All right, I found a syringe and a used baggie between the passenger seat and the center console." And this guy is totally shocked. He's like, "What? I would have seen that. No, that's not mine. How did that get in my car?" I mean, he was totally shocked. He's like, and he's like, "I don't use, look at my," they looked at his arms, and he says, like, "That is definitely not mine." And they're like, "Well, has anybody else been in your car?" And he's like, "Well, my girlfriend, her child." He's like, "No, it's not mine." He goes, "Well," and this officer is very nice to these people. He is like, "I know, I don't think you're a bad person. You just have to be careful of who you let in your car." And the guy did say that he would drive some of his employees around. I don't know why, but so he says, well, I need to call my employer, because he finds out that this is a felony and he's going to jail because the officer tests the drugs that he's found, and he says, it's presumptive positive for methamphetamine. I am going to have to arrest you on felony charges. So meanwhile, as this guy is standing there talking to the state trooper, he figures out that he's related to the state trooper, that somehow they're related. I don't know how that conversation came about, but so he's like, and the guy says, no, I'm not going to handcuff you. You're an okay guy, and you just, and they're like lecturing him, like, if this is something you've recently started doing, we can get you help, and oh my God, this poor guy. And this guy's like, I don't use methamphetamine. So this guy actually, you hear him on the phone talking to his manager, and he's like, man, is there any kind of liability insurance? Can you guys pay for an attorney, since I've been driving employees around and I didn't put this in my vehicle, so it must have been one of them. And I don't know how that turned out. But anyway, he did not spend the night in jail. He got out pretty much right away. I think he recognized someone in the police station, someone that he knew, and he didn't have to stay in jail overnight. So super interesting. I just don't understand how they figured out this cop was doing all this. But anyway, so the next witness is victim number 2, Reginald Williams. Now this is a black man. And unfortunately, the judge does not allow these witnesses to take their mask off. So a lot of is mumbled. And this guy was probably a mumbler anyway. Very southern draw. He was very difficult to understand. But and they brought his girlfriend on as a witness too, because she was actually driving his car. They were, boyfriend and girlfriend, and she said, I drove his car all the time. I also packed his lunch every single day. And I had just finished packing his lunch, and we had just left the house. So, so they get pulled over for a cracked windshield. And the prosecutor says, well, was your windshield really cracked? And there was this like tiny crack down by the windshield wipers. I don't know how on a traffic stop, like in a moving vehicle, a police officer can see that your windshield is cracked. I don't like a teeny tiny crack in your windshield. And FYI, yes, if your windshield is ever cracked, that is illegal. You must have it replaced immediately. And most insurance companies know that. There's usually no charge for a windshield. Now, the other windows, that's a different story. But a windshield, they will come out and they will replace that right away because it's very dangerous. So when he approaches the vehicle, he says he smells marijuana. And they're like, we're not even smoking cigarettes, so, we're out of them. So I don't know what you're smelling. There's no marijuana here. So they both get out of the vehicle, and he tells them to go stand in front of or go sit down in front of the police car. He never even asked his girlfriend that was driving the vehicle for her license and registration. Never asked for that. He doesn't even go to the driver's side of the vehicle. He goes to the passenger side of the vehicle. They can't see what he's doing because, again, his back was turned to them. When the girlfriend found out that her boyfriend was being arrested, she actually tried to film this on her cell phone, and the defendant, the officer, said, if you don't put that phone away, I'm going to arrest you. So she put her phone away. But he conducts his search of their vehicle and finds drugs in the lunchbox that she had just packed. She said, like, really no more than 5 minutes before they were stopped, because their house was very close to where they were stopped. And she says, I didn't put anything like that in there. There was no drugs in that lunchbox. And again, presumptive positive, a little baggie of methamphetamine. So he is arrested. This poor guy, he had 4 prior felony convictions back in the 90s, the early 90s. Um, and in this particular case, he chose to enter a plea for possession of paraphernalia, drug paraphernalia. And there was no one asked him why you took the plea. I mean, there was nothing, no questioning like that. Um, and there was no body cam footage of this traffic stop, none whatsoever, which is a total violation of, um, you know, that sheriff's department policies and procedures. You know, every traffic stop you have to have continuous body cam footage, and he had none for this traffic stop, and there was no explanation in the police report as to why the body cam was not used. You know, like, was it not functioning right? You know, there's just no explanation for it. Did you forget to turn it on? What happened? Then we get to the last victim of the day. He was on his way to a auto body shop to get his front end aligned, and he stopped for crossing a double yellow line. And he's like, "Man, I did not cross a double yellow line. There's no way. I just didn't." So the officer said, "Well, I did check your driver's license, and your driver's license is suspended." And he's like, "What? No, my driver's license is not suspended." Then he says, "And you have no insurance on this vehicle." Well, he actually had proof that he had paid for insurance, so he had that with him. So he says, you know, and again, asking for permission to search the vehicle. So he said, "Yeah, I don't have anything to hide. Go ahead. In fact, I insist that you search that vehicle because you're not going to find anything." This guy also had 5 felony convictions. In fact, had just gotten out of prison 3 weeks prior to this traffic stop. So he says, "You know, my truck is clean. Go ahead, you can search it." So he tells this guy, go stand in front of my patrol car, broad daylight. There is body cam footage of this, except that the body cam footage doesn't start until he gets to the passenger side of the truck. He started his search with the driver's side of the truck, but that's not on the body cam footage. And that center console opens, like if you're sitting this way, the console opens like this, the center console. So then you do see body cam footage. It starts when he gets to the passenger side, and you see the officer reaching around to go into that console that's already opened. And oh, look, there's a bag of meth. And this poor guy, oh my God, he is so distraught. He's like, that is no way, that is not mine. And, you know, so it's the usual questioning. Well, has anybody else been in your car? And he's like, "Yeah, you know, Crystal, some girl named Crystal." And he doesn't remember her last name. And, you know, he's like, "Well, I got to take you to jail because this is presumptive positive for methamphetamine." This guy literally starts crying. He's like, "Oh no, not again," you know. So I'm guessing that something similar happened to him before, which is why he was already in jail. So he is arrested and he is booked. And I don't know if he took a plea or not. I do know that the first victim, the one that I said didn't spend the night in jail, his case gets dismissed. The second guy took a plea. This third guy, they don't ever say what happened to him as far as, you know, any plea or anything like that. So sad, so sad. He's like, no, that is not mine. And then the other thing that all three of these traffic stops have in common is that this officer's goes back and forth to his vehicle 3-4 times, and nobody can see what it is he's doing when he does that. So those are the first 3 of the 12 victims. So I think we're going to hear more victims today. All right, let's do this day in history real quick because, I can't skip it. If I skip it, y'all, I hear, why you didn't do this day in history? So we're going to do this day in history. I love y'all. I really do. You keep me on my toes. So this day in history, this has to do with the Charles Lindbergh baby kidnapping. This is the day, May 12th, that they actually found the baby. The baby had passed away. As you might recall, on March 1st, the nanny for the baby's nanny goes in. The baby's missing. 20-month-old baby Charles Lindbergh had flown solo across the Atlantic. So he was kind of famous for that. He was rich. No question about that. And they find that the baby's missing. Someone had climbed up to the second floor window. The window was open. They find this homemade ladder and a note that demands $50,000. But there's no information. They don't get any information as to where to deliver the $50,000. So they wait, and 3 days later, they get another note from the kidnappers that they want $70,000. So now they have a way to, they're communicating with the kidnapper. They pay the kidnapper, and they pay him in gold certificates, and it's paid through an intermediary. So they give the money to this third person who gives the money to the kidnapper. So $70,000 in gold certificates. Now, shortly after this, the president of the United States, he does away with gold certificates because there was, a run on gold. It was getting very expensive. So they went to the currency that we know of now, but there were still gold certificates out there. So when they paid the $70,000 in gold certificates, they're handed another note, and the note says that you can find the baby on this boat, this particular boat, and they tell them what body of water, and they go there, and they never find the boat, they never find the baby. So, and this exchange of money doesn't happen until April, like a month after the kidnapping. And then it's on, they look on this, they're looking for this boat. They never find the boat. Meanwhile, the kidnappers got his $70,000. So on May 12th, they did a renewed search of the area near the Lindbergh mansion, and the baby's body was found. And it turns out he had been killed the night of the kidnapping. Some people theorize that he may have been dropped when they were coming down from the ladder because he died of a head injury. Very sad case. So, did they ever catch the kidnapper? Well, yes, they did. So, as it so happens, some months later, actually 2 years later, this man pulls up to a gas station and he gets 98 cents worth of gas. And he pays for the gas with this $10 gold certificate. And the gas attendant's like, oh, that's kind of unusual. Nobody uses these anymore. So he goes ahead and he deposits it in his bank. And the bank teller, she looks at it and she's like, this is kind of interesting because, it's a gold certificate. Nobody uses these anymore. And this one is marked. So she calls the police. And they identified that yes, this was one of the marked bills that was paid in that $70,000 ransom. So they go to this guy's house, they arrest him, they search his house very thoroughly, I might add, because they find close to $14,000 more in these gold certificates, all marked with, that it was all marked. They knew it came from the Lindbergh ransom money. He had put it in an old oil can, and then put it, or he had wrapped up the money, put it in an oil can, put the oil can within a pickle jar, then put it in a wall, and then underneath the flooring. Now, that had to be one hell of a search to find that. But they found it, and this guy is convicted of the kidnapping. They said that his handwriting matched the handwriting on the notes. They said that he had, because this was a handmade ladder, they said he had similar wood in his attic, and he was a carpenter, so he knew how to make ladders. And he was executed in the electric chair following year. Like, they didn't play back then. You're convicted, you die. Like, they didn't give much of a chance for an appeal back then. Now we give them years and years to appeal. Years and years and years. So, I mean, think by today's standards, they would have been looking for DNA and all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, that is the Lindbergh story, and that is This Day in History, and that is the show for today. What time is it? I got to go to work. Yep, it's 8 o'clock. Time for me to go. You guys have a great day. Don't forget, today is Wednesday. I will be doing Craft With Me Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time tonight. My special guest is Crafting with Christy. She's a colorist. She and I are going to take out our pencils and do some coloring. And yes, it's going to be an Alice in Wonderland coloring book. So come join me. I always love when I have Christy, get to catch up with my girl. She was scheduled for last month. We had to bump her because of the raccoon caper. Yes, if you don't know that story, that's for another day. I love you all, and I'll be thinking of you while I'm working. Bye.